Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this handicapping adventure are BJ Cunningham and Anthony DeBundo. Right off the top, I'll let you know that, as always, we have a 3-leg underdog parlay to give out at the end of the show. This one is going to come in at 214 to 1, so stick around for that. But before we get to there, we're going to go through the EFL Cup final between Chelsea and Liverpool, the 8 Premier League matches over the weekend, touch on Bundesliga, Serie A, La Liga, Ligue 1, give out that aforementioned whopper of a parlay, and then our best bets for the Premier League coming up. But before we do all of that, a reminder that Wondergoal is proudly presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anybody else. Every day, they power up odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. And Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays. And they don't stop there, Anthony. No, they don't. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boost and see why. It's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. If you have a gambling problem or know someone who has one and wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. Okay, we'll start with the EFL Cup final. Liverpool and Chelsea here. This is taking place Sunday, 10 a.m. at Wembley. Chelsea plus 200, Liverpool a plus 125 favorite. The draw here is plus 260. I kind of want to make maybe my first bet of the season on Liverpool here. I think I'd rather bet Liverpool than Chelsea. The only problem is I don't know who's going to be around to play for Liverpool, BJ.
I agree. I mean, we have the benefit, obviously, of just seeing this match 2 weeks ago at Anfield. And let's just say Chelsea got throttled, like run out of the park at Fortress Anfield. This is on a neutral field. It is in London. But the problem of how Chelsea was setting up against Liverpool, Chelsea is a good team, and why they've stepped up in competition. They obviously have drawn with City twice and drawn with Arsenal, is because they're just flat out a better team against the big boys when they're able to just sit deep in a low block and play in transition. That doesn't really work with Liverpool because they also want to play in transition. So Chelsea kind of got caught in this in-between type of match. So they were playing a high defensive line, and they were kind of doing what Villa does. Like, they were playing a high defensive line, but they weren't really applying much ball pressure to Liverpool's back line. So Liverpool would just overload 5 on the last line and just send long balls up all match. And since Chelsea didn't apply a lot of pressure, I mean, they had a 1 high turnover and 16.5 was their pass per defensive action. I mean, Darwin Nunez was just making runs off the last line. He had 11 shots in the match. I think that might have been the highest shot total of anybody during the Premier League season so far. So I'm interested to see what Chelsea does. They might go with a little bit more aggressive approach. Conor Gallagher's been pressing from the front line the last few matches. So we'll see. Obviously pressing Liverpool with that much intensity is a very dangerous game to play with how good they are in transition. So we'll see what Chelsea does here. The biggest thing, like you said, Michael, it has to be who's playing for Liverpool, right? Because they started Gakpo, Diaz, and Elliott up top against Luton Town on Wednesday. And it was very clear that, they are very missing Salah and Nunez in terms of finishing, because it was, I know they created 4 expected goals, but my goodness, they could have 4 in the first half against Luton, and they were just, weren't finishing well in front of net. So I think if Salah and Nunez both play, I like the price in Liverpool. I project them at minus 112 on a neutral field. I also like the over 2.5 at minus 143. Liverpool is still without Trent. They're going to be without Alisson for a long period of time. So the defense can be get at, like you saw that with Luton Town today. Like, Luton Town did have chances on the break, and Chelsea can do that to them here. Even, Chelsea did score against Liverpool the last time. So I do like the over, and I like Liverpool as well if Nunez and Salah both play.
Yeah, I think, so the market's taken a ton of Chelsea money. This was minus 110 about a week ago when we first discussed it off air, BJ. And it has taken a lot of Chelsea money as a result of just the injuries. I mean, Nunez and Salah are the 2 most important players in this match. We don't know their status. I think they're both going to play just based on, the fact they didn't get risked at all today. makes me think that Klopp is like pretty confident that they're going to be fine for Sunday to play, especially Salah, who is more so dealing with fatigue, whereas Nunez did pick up a knock in the match over the weekend. So if they're both in, yeah, I think it has to be Liverpool, but I also think the over is good too. I mean, why isn't this 3?
Yeah.
Because for me, it should be 3, and it's 2.5. You have to lay a little bit of juice, minus 140. You could take 2 3/4. You want to lay closer to minus 110. That's fine. But there were 53 total attacking penalty area touches in the last meeting. There were 54 in the first meeting. So regardless of, who controlled it, you go back to the first meeting, which was literally the opening day of the season, 32 for Chelsea, 22 for Liverpool. The second meeting was 44-9 in favor of Liverpool, 12 high turnovers. You talked about it, BJ. Chelsea still were able to complete a lot of passes. It was just they had a ton of extra mistakes in there. So they were able to play through it a good amount. It was just when they did, they got to the penalty area and then did nothing. And then when they didn't, it was an immediate opportunity for Liverpool. So I think, the injury situation for Liverpool too, it doesn't just end at forward, but with Alisson out, I think, of course it's a downgrade in shot stopping. And Nico Jackson's in. I mean, he didn't play the reverse fixture, the match at Anfield. And that, I think, really contributed to Chelsea not really having an option as an outlet in that match. They're going to have their full complement of attacking options available in this match as well. And so I know it was like a running bit with a while in this matchup. They played 3 straight matches with over 2.5 expected goals that all ended 0-0, 2 in a cup finals, 1 in the league. I know it's a cup final, so you generally expect like a cagier type of thing, and that seems to be priced in here. But I don't really think either of these teams wants to play that kind of style. So it's going to be over or nothing for me, and Liverpool or nothing. I agree with both of you guys. I'm going to wait a little bit to see if we can't get more news on injuries. Liverpool played Wednesday, an enthralling victory at home against Luton Town, and we haven't heard from Klopp yet, at least probably until tomorrow in terms of what the injuries look like for the weekend. So I'm going to kind of wait on that and see if we can't get more info. And I will have the preview for this game in the Action Network app and website up Saturday. So we'll get more information, and I'll have a bet for that.
Okay. On to the Premier League then. We'll start with Villa and Forest. Aston Villa is laying minus 188 at home, hosting Forest plus 450. The draw is plus 333. Both of these teams coming off of wins over the weekend. Forest, I thought, was quite impressive. Actually, their last couple games now for Forest. And that kind of lends into where we're going to go here. The win against West Ham was just really impressive, and even like the 3-2 loss to Newcastle was just weird more than anything. When you look at there was about 1.5 expected goals total between the two sides, and it finishes 3-2 to Newcastle. Kind of tells you how that one was played out. Put forth a decent effort against a tough Bournemouth team in a 1-1 draw in the game before that. So they're trending in the right direction. I think, meanwhile, Villa is just wobbly, and their recent record shows that, right? 2 wins, 2 losses of their last 4. Before that, it was that 0-0 draw against Everton, which I think was probably the fair score line. So it's just not been all that impressive. So I think you're catching a decent number here on Forest in a spot I want to back them. Like, I want to try to go against Villa when they're at these kind of prices at this point in the season. I think they're getting a little bit too much credit for what they've done over the course of the season rather than where they are right now, Anthony.
Yeah, I agree entirely. Through Forest in the app, first bet I made for the new match week back on Sunday, was kind of shocked that there was a 1.5 minus 145 out there. Those are gone now, but you can still get +1 minus 110. I think that's fine here. I don't have this as a full goal. I know it's crazy if you just take like the season long data and you say, oh, Villa's been this good, Forest's been this good, should be about a goal and a quarter ish. But as you start to look into, a little bit beyond just like season long form, and you look more recent form and injury situation, everything points to Forest here. Matchup wise, I think this is good for Forest. Since Nuno took over, they've created 12.2 expected goals, conceded 9.5. They've been positive from an XG difference perspective. They even played almost a whole match down a man and had those numbers as well. The schedule has been a little bit below average. some Bournemouth in there, and as one of their tougher games. But they also played Arsenal. They were pretty competitive in that one as well. So it's not like they've been uncompetitive. Outplayed Newcastle and outplayed West Ham pretty comfortably last weekend. So you see the effect that Taiwo has on this team. Close control, turn and score against West Ham in a half that didn't have a ton at either end, really, and kind of him being the difference. I think it makes a huge upgrade to them. And now they have all their AFCON guys back in the defense and the midfield. So I think you have your most dynamic and effective Forest team against a Villa team that comes into this. Their defensive numbers have been on a continued slide pretty much since the opening week or opening month of the season. And that trend line continues with the fact that now that Konsa and Kamara and Diego Carlos are out, their defensive numbers are really flawed. They're giving up 1.75 XG per 90 in the last 2.5 months. It's a pretty big sample. And like I said, the trend line, it's not great podcasting, but like the trend line is straight in the wrong direction in terms of conceding too many chances. So, we saw this matchup earlier this year and Forest hit them early and then kind of just sat very deep and just absorbed pressure. I do think Forest comes into this and sits extremely deep. I think they're going to be able to hit on the break even when it's 0-0. And Villa's, not going to get those chances to get in behind themselves because Forest sits so deep that I think that, this Villa team, which has been pretty much league average, and you're even seeing Emery kind of suggesting it in the press where he's like, look, there's like 7 teams better than us. Pretty true. And this race for the top 4 is going to be really fascinating because like nobody's that good after the top 3. Like, I think it's really interesting. Obviously, Spurs and Villa have the most points. Spurs are in the best in terms of health right now. Like, everybody's available for Tottenham, but then they go lose to Wolves without their fullbacks. So the top 4 race is heating up. Man United's making a run, but like obviously we don't really believe in them. So it probably just going to be Tottenham or Villa by default, just based on what's left. Tottenham have a tougher schedule. They go to Villa, but Villa are playing worse right now. Tottenham are power rated higher. I think I agree with that. So now it becomes very fascinating on like how to determine this race. And, like even if you were looking for a team to make a run, it's like probably Brighton is your best bet.
80-1.
80-1.
Yeah. For top
4.
They're like 6 or 7-1 for top 6, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is really interesting.
It's just, there's not a clear option to make a run. Nobody's like rounding into form. Everybody's just kind of teetering after the top 3. We talked about like nobody playing defense, and that's kind of the whole thing of it right now. The league is just drunk and nobody plays defense after the top 3. And so anybody can beat anybody on any given day. And nobody is putting themselves in a position where like, oh, this team could really turn a corner here and reel off 5 wins in a row. I don't really know who that is. I mean, technically United just did it, but I'm not totally sure that there's a contender right now. So I think based solely off of personnel, it'd be Tottenham, but not inspired.
I mean, I'll basically bet Brighton to do anything at 80-1.
I know you will. Well, let's wait. Let's wait for that. Let's wait for Everton to beat them.
Though, it's a lot of points.
Then we'll get 100-1.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's skip to Arsenal and Newcastle next. Arsenal is coming off of a really hard-fought loss to Porto. Scrappy Arsenal losing to Porto in the Champions League 1-0. They are kind of come back to England, lick their wounds as a -275 favorite against Newcastle United. I say this a lot, but if you just read me these odds on September 1st that Newcastle would be 7-1 at Arsenal, I just give my head a shake. And it goes back to what I said, and I've been saying, not just for when we do preview podcasts for like this show, but in the NHL too, is weird stuff just happens over the course of a season, and you always just got to remember that. And that's very true. No team exemplifies that more than Newcastle this season. The draw here is 4-1. I'm tempted by the price on Newcastle just because I know that like they should have a higher ceiling than what they've shown. But before we get to you, BJ, Anthony, you're gonna go the other way here, and I'm curious why.
Yeah, I'm back in Arsenal. -1.5 +110 +115. We got a few extra cents today after their loss to Porto in the Champions League, in which the Arsenal squad created 0.09 XG from open play at Porto. The ball was in play for 52 minutes. It was, and I kid you not, I have watched so many soccer matches this year. I have watched 2 lower level Premier League teams. I've watched Serie A matches that never had a chance of having more than 1 goal. I've watched Las Palmas versus Valencia. Today was the worst match that I have watched all season. And I know it was the stakes of it. Like, it was exciting. Oh, it's the Champions League. And, we're rooting on Arsenal for the future. But it was awful. I mean, every possession ended in a foul. They would take 5 minutes to line up the set piece. They would fight each other before they even had the ball put in the box. Then the ref would have to break it up. And then the set piece would result in nothing. And then we would just keep doing the same cycle. It was like just the worst soccer match I've watched all year. The ball was never in play. And they were never doing anything. And for Porto, it was just long balls over the press or trying to draw fouls off of it. And for Arsenal, it was ball circulation, ball retention, and then eventually they would not get anywhere and have to try to draw a set piece. So it was awful. It's everything that's wrong with Arsenal in that exact match. It's just sometimes they don't have it and they don't create enough and they're too control oriented and they don't have a superstar. Saka's borderline, but they don't have the game winner. And with that being said, I don't really think it matters now. They come home, and if they beat Porto in 2 or 3 weeks, which they probably will, they're going to be minus 275, probably 300 to win that, probably minus 220 to advance. Shouldn't have problems, no away goals anymore. Nobody will care about the fact they lost to Porto. But I think if you want to chase Arsenal here, they're not really that inflated based on just form-weighted numbers. This Newcastle defense has gone on the road against 3 of the big 6 in the last 2 months since the capitulation of their numbers. They gave up 7 expected goals to Liverpool, 3+ to City, 3+ to Tottenham. They did get 2 at home against City on the break to keep that match competitive, but then when they were up 2-1, they couldn't hold on for life. They just got ripped open. And now, this injury situation, Isak, I think, is back. It's not clear that he's back. So maybe he plays a half. And Wilson is out. But they lose Joe Linton early January. He goes under the knife, surgery. And the amount of attacking production they were getting from him, the ball winning, the running, the energy, gone. He was covering for Burn really well. Joe Willock can do that, but now he's been out. So, there's just no way that they're going to be able to slow down Arsenal on the wings here. And I think Arsenal is going to get space and transition. And from that point forward, it's going to be a really tough challenge for Newcastle to stay in this game. There's a Newcastle team that, at home against Bournemouth, and what we thought was a pretty good spot for them. We were like, I was happy to go against them because their numbers, they just concede 2 or 3 big chances every match. And it's the same pattern of play that results in this. So I think Arsenal can exploit it. I think Saka and Martinelli will have space. Maybe we can get Gabby Jesus in there to miss some chances and create because I'd like to see him back. But I think this Arsenal team, they're going to have days where they don't have it, and they're going to have great days. They're still a great team. I said the same thing last week. Arsenal's very good. They're not any better than they were 2 weeks ago. They're not any worse than they were a month ago. They're still one of the best teams in the world, probably the second, maybe third, borderline best team in the Prem. And, I think that this is a great matchup for them because Newcastle's not going to get anything against this elite defense, and they're going to give up 2 or 3 big chances. Hopefully a couple go in, and Arsenal wins this, 2-0, 3-1.
All right. I'm going to take things in a little bit of a different direction here. I think now is the time to buy on Arsenal to win the Premier League at plus 470, which is the best price you can find right now. If we just look at pure expected goal differential, Arsenal is sitting at plus 1.29 per 90. That's the best in the Premier League. It's actually pretty significantly better than City. Liverpool racked up a bunch against Luton, so they've closed the gap on that. I mean, what it comes down to is that Arsenal is, we've said it many times, the best out-of-possession team in the world, and they just continually keep getting better and better. They are allowing 0.66 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes. 0.66. They have only conceded 8 big scoring chances this season. Nobody has created over 1.5 expected goals against them. That is how good they are out of possession. You cannot play in transition against them. It is very, very difficult to build out of the back against them. And that's happened when they've faced the top tier teams in the Premier League. 6 matches against the Big Six. Tottenham is the only team that has created over 1 non-penalty expected goal against them. And if you remember, it was basically all off of a Jorginho just slip mistake where Tottenham broke and they scored. Arsenal hasn't lost any of those 6 matches either. So I get it. Losers like Anthony will say, well, Arsenal's not good enough in open play. Oh, they only created 0.1 against Porto. Oh, the sky is falling. So far, this Premier League, Arsenal has 34 expected goals from open play. City has 38, and after today, Liverpool's at 43 with a game in hand. So what has Arsenal done to make up that ground? They've turned into an elite set-piece team. 16 goals off of set pieces, 4th in XG per set piece, way better than City, way better than Liverpool. So this is an elite offense, not just, they are good from open play, and then they're elite on set pieces, which by in turn makes them an elite offense. Now, let's talk about Manchester City. Because they have 1 win against the Big Six this year. And it's against that garbage Manchester United team. They've drawn Chelsea twice. They've drawn Tottenham. They've lost to Arsenal twice. They've drawn Liverpool. And suddenly, everybody thinks they're just going to walk to the title over the second half of the season. Everybody. Every pundit says, well, City's going to go walk to the title. Nice try, Arsenal. Nice try on your farewell tour, Klopp. But it's Manchester City. Nobody can stop them. They're the best team in the world. Nobody can play. Nobody can even be on the same field as them. Again, they have 1 win against the Big Six. It just is a pattern now that shows that teams have been able to hit them on the break. They're not as good defensively as they were last year. I'll get into that deeper when we talk about Manchester City and Bournemouth. And their schedule to end the season is not as easy as everybody thinks it is. They have a 4-game stretch where they have to play at Liverpool, at Brighton, at home against Aston Villa, and then at home against Arsenal. And then later on in the season, they got to go to Tottenham sandwiched in between a Champions League quarterfinal. So Arsenal's going to play City, I believe, on March 31st. And that's obviously going to be a huge match here for the title. But with City being worse out of possession, having worse underlying numbers than Arsenal being the most tactically diverse team in the world, I know they didn't show it today against Porto, who played perfect out of possession. Like, that's the only team that's really played absolutely perfect to limit Arsenal. I'm dead serious. That is like the one team that's actually played it absolutely perfectly against Arsenal. Really, that match and the match against Fulham were their worst 2 matches of the season. And if you want to take that match against Porto and have it as an indictment on Arsenal, that's fine. But the reality is, Anthony, is that this team has the best underlying numbers. Their schedule actually lines up pretty well. They have 3 matches here. They got Newcastle, then Sheffield United, and Brentford. If Liverpool or City slips up in the next 3 matches, Arsenal can be sitting at the top of the table when Arsenal and City meet on March 31st. And plus, let's just talk about price. Plus 470 is a fantastic price for the team that has the best underlying metrics in the Premier League. That's the fact. Okay? Liverpool's going through an injury crisis. They're kind of like the side team in this, right? Because they're going through this injury crisis. It's Klopp's farewell tour. So we'll see what happens, but not having Alisson, not having Trent Alexander-Arnold for an extended period of time is a loss. And Liverpool has 2 losses on the season. One was to Tottenham with 9 men, and the other they got pumped by Arsenal. We'll see if they can continue this winning run. And guess what? Also, City last season won 14 straight. Do you know how hard that is to do? Like, they don't just repeat that year after year after year. Like, they're going to continue to slip up because they are worse out of possession. So Arsenal to win the Premier League, plus 470, I believe now is the right time to buy. That Arsenal has a good 3-match stretch here, and they could have a good position by the time we face Manchester City. But they are not significantly worse than Manchester City. In fact, there are a lot of data points that say they're better than Manchester City. I know not a lot of people won't believe that, but it's the truth.
All right, so non-penalty expected goals created this year, according to the macro football, has an only 11 on 11 per 9.
I know. I've seen this.
Liverpool 2.17, City 2.05, Arsenal 1.78, and people will tell you that defense wins championships. It's not true.
It's the truth. No, it actually is the truth. City was the best out of possession team in the world last year, and that's why they won the treble.
Written off for City. I think people expect City to do it, and the main reason they expect that is because City didn't have literally their best player for the majority of the season.
Are they going to have him for the second half?
Yes, I expect him to play the majority of the minutes for City in the stretch run, and now Haaland is back for the majority of the stretch run here. And yes, they may not win every match. We just saw Haaland have, what he did on Saturday where he missed everything, and they had to settle for a 1-1 draw. And look, I agree, their defense will leak a couple goals, and that's why I don't think this is a done deal. That's why I haven't bet City yet. But Liverpool has the most points and the easiest schedule left in the league. Just they don't go to City, they don't go to Spurs, they don't go to Arsenal. They host City, they host Spurs. They're done with Newcastle. They're done with Arsenal. And they're done with Chelsea. So
but they got Everton March on St. Patrick's Day.
Yep. At Everton, at Forest.
Yeah. Okay, we're not doing at Forest now.
At Villa.
I'll probably bet.
Nobody wins at Villa. At Old Trafford, Theater of Dreams.
Yeah, I will see how that goes for Man United. But yeah, I just think that the case for Arsenal is that they're going to grind out all of these results.
But they're not. They're throttling everybody. They had one bad performance.
The way they play is much more inclined to get picked off and settle for draws than it is City if they just go.
That's what City's been doing.
And create chance after chance after chance and dominate teams.
City's been doing that. They've been drawing with teams. They've been drawing with every Big Six team because they're trying to control matches and they're getting beat on the break.
Most of those games were in the first half of the season.
Oh, of course.
They were. The Tottenham match, at Chelsea, Liverpool, like they totally dominated Liverpool and gave up 1 goal, on a Trent shot from 25 yards. I mean, for me, it comes down to this. Like Arsenal still has to go to City, and I think that's going to be the problem for them. If they can't get a result, and they're going to be an underdog to get a result there. If they lose that match, it's over.
No, it is. I agree.
So, like, that's you're putting all your eggs in a basket that they're going to win at the Etihad, because a draw is just kind of holding serve. So for me, I can't get there on Arsenal. Maybe they do it and they prove me wrong. And I've said this from day one, like, not a buyer in Arsenal to win the league. But if I had to make a bet right now, it actually would be City, just because I do think Liverpool's injury situation is a little bit concerning. Also, like, if you wanted to play this game, one team's going to be two of them are in the Champions League. One is not. I think it's an advantage for Liverpool.
Why? They're going to be on a Europa League run.
Yeah. Well, how far are they going to go? Are they going to rotate? Are they going to focus on the league? I think there's a chance that you see some rotation if push comes to shove. Also, they're just going to be playing worse teams. Like, there's a good chance they just beat somebody really badly in one leg, and then they're not in a contentious tie in the second leg. Whereas Arsenal and City are going to be in. I mean, Arsenal might not be, but City and Arsenal are going to be in.
That's another that you just hit another point that I just said. What if Arsenal doesn't? What if they get varianced out against Porto, and suddenly they're out of the FA Cup, they're out of the Champions League, and full focus on the Premier League?
Bad season because they would end with no trophies for all their success.
Oh.
We got to move on. I'm on Arsenal this weekend. BJ's on them to win the league. If you want to make a donation, I know some good charities. You can also DM me, and we could share the money with the people instead of the sports books.
Brighton and Everton next. Brighton, odds on at home, -120. The Toffees. God, there's something. 0 wins, 4 draws, 4 losses in their last 8. Oh, boy. They're down. I hate to say it, but they're down. Mm-hmm. Congratulations to Luton Town on.
No, they're not going down. Stop. Let's
they're down. They're down.
No. We do this every year. They're not going down.
Yeah, we do it every year because they don't almost go down by the skin of their teeth every year. This time they have a 10-point points deduction.
Could be more.
Yeah. A draw here, pay out 275. Hey, guess what? I like Everton here. I think that you're gonna you're buying them at a kind of a weird spot in their, to borrow Anthony's term, trend line. Like I said, winless in their last 8. 5 goals scored, 13 goals against, but they are underperforming their expected goals for in that time period by 8.5. A goal and a half, like a goal point, 1.1 goals per game, basically. They're underperforming by. So at some point, this should click. They should get a win, and we just know that Brighton is totally okay with giving up goals, and they're such a psychotic team. Let me just read to you the last 7 score lines for Brighton since December 28th, 2023. Played Spurs 1-4-2. 0-0, 0-0 against West Ham and Wolves. 4-0 loss to Luton Town. A 4-1 win against Crystal Palace. A 2-1 loss to Spurs, and then a 5-0 win against Sheffield United. It's like a scoregami tour. They just hit every possible score you can have in a soccer match, and I just like the fact that Everton, like, you could see this game going off the rails because every Brighton game has a chance to, and I actually think that's what Everton is looking for. Like, they need a match to go off the rails. They need a match to open up to have a chance right now, because these cagey, grinded out matches just aren't working for them with the way that their squad is built right now, BJ. So
unfortunately, Michael, I think that's what's going to happen in this match, because if we go back to the previous meeting between these two, if you remember, Everton scored early, scored in the 7th minute, and they just sat deep, and they just cut off Brighton's central progression, and they just said, we're not letting you play through. So, but obviously De Zerbi wants his team to dominate central parts of the pitch. So it was just this constant battle against Everton's mid-block, and Everton actually did a really good job defensively for the full 90 minutes. I mean, Brighton held 79% of the ball and only were able to get 7 shots and 0.7 XG for the entire match. So I think you could see, especially Everton being on the road, doing something similar to that again. I know people probably listen to this podcast and they probably deeply sigh whenever we talk about about Brentford or Everton, because it's like, all right, here we go. They're going to tell us
just skip through it.
One of these two losers again. But Everton, since their last win on December 16th, -8 actual goal differential, -1.1 expected goal differential. So there is some positive regression coming for them. And Brighton is second to last in the Premier League in XG allowed per set piece. So gear up for those Everton corners, because they're going to be electric. So, but yeah, I like Everton +0.5 at even money projected this match. Pretty close to actually a pick'em. Like, if you look at expected points, Everton's actually ahead of, if you don't count obviously the 10-point deduction, Everton's actually ahead of Brighton. Which kind of just goes to show how bad their underperformance has been. But Everton is due to win a match at some point here. So this could definitely be it. And it's a decent matchup for them.
They're due.
Is that all you got to say here, Anthony?
Yeah, I'm going to pass.
Okay.
Which usually means Everton wins.
Perfect. No, I'm fine
whenever
with
I'm
that.
not on them, they tend to win. So I'm going to try to will you guys across the line here and stay away. Now, if Everton were to drift, where I could get +110, 115, now we're talking. Maybe I'll take some +0.5. But right now, I'll pass.
On to Palace and Burnley next. Crystal Palace and Everton just drew 1-1 over the weekend. Palace is now -106 with their new manager. We have to say farewell to Roy Hodgson, who got sacked in the most Roy Hodgson way imaginable. So what is it? He'll be back at Palace, I'll say, by Halloween.
Got sacked while he was in the hospital.
I know. It's just is there more Roy Hodgson thing to happen? Oliver Glasner comes in -106, favorite in his first match at Selhurst Park. Burnley +280. The draw here is +250. Burnley's coming off of a 5-0 defeat to Arsenal. But they've just they've been bad. I know they've been bad, but their last batch of matches has been pretty rough schedule-wise. City, Liverpool, Arsenal in 3 of their last 4, and the only other match was a draw against Fulham 2-2 at home. So they do have a couple of draws in their last 2 home matches that didn't come against Arsenal. Maybe you can say that things are looking like a shred better for them, and think that I would tend to lean towards Burnley instead of Palace in this spot. But the number's not good enough on either side. So I'll pass on what looks like it could be a pretty wonky game with the new manager, the way Burnley wants to play, the way Palace has played under Hodgson. Now got to change to a Leipzig guy. So not Leipzig, a Red Bulls guy. So, Anthony, what are your thoughts here on Palace and Burnley?
My thoughts are that there are like no good attackers playing in this match, like zero. And thus it's going to be really hard to get 3 goals without a lot of miscues or weird bounces. And thus I will be betting the under. I don't want to say anything more. You guys all know, if you listen to this show, that overs are hitting at a crazy rate. Under 2.5, you can find minus 130. That's my buy point. It has taken some money, but there are still 130s out there. I think it's too high. This last meeting between these two teams was 2-0. There were 4 shots that registered an XG over 0.1 attempt. 2 of them came deep in stoppage time, including the second goal. So this was like a pretty sweat-free one. At Burnley, Palace won, and now you have a Palace team that scored 2 goals on screamers the last 2 matches. That's been it. There's not been much else.
I will say about Glasner is actually kind of interesting with this Palace squad and how it fits. The guy can coach. I mean, he took Wolfsburg to the Champions League. He took obviously Frankfurt and took them all the way to win the Europa League. Even before that, he took a couple teams in Austria, Lask from the second division, all the way to the Champions League. Like, the guy has a system that works, and it's not possession reliant, which is good with the current squad that Palace has. But like Anthony said, like, everybody's injured for Palace right now. So I think Palace is an interesting team as we look next year. If they're able to keep everybody together, which looks like it's not going to happen,
no.
His system, which is a 3-4-2-1 with Eze and Elise playing as 2 double attacking midfielders with Edouard up top, is kind of interesting and makes Palace maybe a potential buy team. But again, we'll have to wait to see what happens till next season. As for this match, nothing. But just keep an eye on Glasner's system as we go throughout the second half of the season. Like, Palace is an interesting team because they're probably not getting relegated and they're not getting in the top 10. So they're an interesting team to kind of just monitor and see how things are, where the trajectory is good, because they might be a buy team next year.
Okay. On to Man United. You got to lay minus 175 for them against Fulham. The Cottagers traveling as a plus 475 underdog. The draw here is plus 320. I told you guys. Anthony wanted me kicked out of the country for saying that United was a good bet last week, and they're always a good bet. They're always a good bet. Except here, when you're laying this kind of price. Against a Fulham side that we've talked about their lack of punch going forward. It's almost like a script flip from a year ago with this team, right? Like, lack of punch going forward, but more teeth defensively. I mean, we don't really need to get too far into this one. You just look at the price, and you know United can lose to anybody at this kind of price. I don't care if it's at Old Trafford. I don't care if it's on the moon. Like, this is a little crazy here, BJ.
It is a little crazy, and I got to be honest. I don't think I have placed a wager on Fulham since they came back to the Premier League. I really would have to go back and check because you have one. Yeah, this is gonna be my first one.
Last season, I bought them a couple times.
Yeah,
one I put in the app, so I'm 1-0.
Yeah, this is gonna be the first one. Let's just go back to the previous meeting, which was a dreadful match, to say the least. But United, in that match, they got bailed out by a late goal from Bruno. They didn't register 1 shot with an XG rating over 0.1. Like, they were generally terrible for the entire match, and Fulham kind of outplayed them. And that was a Craven Cottage, so you say, oh, we're coming back to Old Trafford. You know, United's won 4 straight. Everything's great. You know, like the top 4 challengers now? No. I mean, they've lost the XG battle in 3 of those 4 wins. In 9 of their wins this season, they have lost the XG battle. Like, that's how fraudulent this team is. And Fulham, they're looking a little better as of late. Muñoz has been an upgrade to Raul Jimenez, 3.8 shots per 90. Jimenez was getting 2.7. He scored 4 goals. Looks like they maybe have a little bit of a threat up there other than Jimenez. So Fulham could have something going forward. If you look at Fulham's home road splits, they're bad, to say the least. They have a minus 15 expected goal differential away from home. But I will say 8 of their 12 away matches this season have come against teams in the top half of the table, to be fair to them. So they've just kind of gotten beaten by good teams. But yeah, there's no way United should be laying a goal. I'll go back to it and say it again. United has won 2 matches by multiple goals this year in the Premier League. So who is laying -1 with Manchester United right now? I guess people who are fans of them, or maybe just tuning in and being like, hey, they've won 4 straight. Like, let's just keep backing them. But they looked bad against Luton after going up 2 goals. I mean, Luton took 11 straight shots in the first half and 22 overall for the match. So Fulham +1 for me.
Yeah, they give up 20 shots for fun.
Yeah, like it was terrible.
And if you had a weakness for this Fulham team, it would be that they're not efficient at turning final third possession into shots and goals and box entries. And that is the biggest problem with United right now, is that once you run at them, they have no transition defense. Casemiro should have been sent off in the first half against Luton, but then had to be taken off because he was so poor in that match. They have no stoppers. Mainu has been really impressive. And I think him, Højlund, Garnacho, you can squint and see maybe this is the future. But there's so many meh players in this team right now, and lack of control and lack of organization. United is 12th in build-up completion rate allowed. Fulham is better in build-up than United is at pressing. That's not something I ever thought I would say. And that's something that shouldn't really be said, given the talent. But it is true, and that's where I think Fulham has kind of an advantage in this match. And so, yeah, Fulham, are they a great team? No. Paulinho is going to be suspended. That's a big loss for them in midfield. United's attack has found some things that have worked. Højlund's shots have started to go in. That always helps. But they only have 2 wins by multiple goals all season. So I'm going to back Fulham. And you mentioned it, BJ, and I cowered in fear as you said it. But I could see myself buying some Fulham stock in the second down the stretch run here, playing home games against these other teams in the top half that are a little bit overvalued maybe. And maybe
we'll see what the lines are.
Fulham isn't going to be too easy for some of these teams, as our Arsenal showed, really. I mean, I think if you put in perspective and you kind of squint a little bit, I know I've been anti-Fulham because of their striker problem, but if they just have a striker who's better, they're not a bad team. They're just a normal bad team.
Another line that I think if you showed me before the season started, I'd be kind of shocked at is Bournemouth. They're 6-1 at home, but you'd expect that price to be a little bit larger with where their reputation was coming into the season. City -225 here. The draw is +350. City did play in the midweek. They won against Brentford. So short rest here for Pep's charges. A lot of soccer piling up for them. Also because of Champions League, etc. I think there probably are ways you can bet against City here, BJ.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna sit it out. There's some other bets I'd rather be placing here, but you like the cherries here.
I do like the cherries +1.5 at home here at -130. If you look back to the previous meeting, it was right before Bournemouth went on their trajectory line upwards. They got throttled 6-1, and it was starting to question, is Iraola done? Is this thing really going to work? If you go back to that match, though, I mean, yes, City scored 6 goals off of 1.9 expected, and Bournemouth was playing a backup keeper, and it showed. Now their normal starting keeper, Neto, is in there. He's been very, very good this season. And Bournemouth, I know the schedule. The schedule, it's gotten a little tougher here as we've gotten deeper into this. But since November 4th, from the date that they met, Bournemouth has a +0.87 expected goal differential per 90. City is at +1.05. So there's really not this massive, massive gap between these two teams. Iraola's system is obviously very transition based when they're going to play a team like City. And as we've seen, City has been vulnerable in transition. So City's press is not as effective as it was last season. If you look at their pass per defensive action has gone from 11.2 to 12.3. Their build-up completion percentage allowed has gone from 78 to 80%. I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a trajectory line downwards and showing that they've been worse defensively. Last season, they allowed 0.76 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes. Now they're allowing 0.88. So City's defense has continued to get a little bit worse and worse, and Bournemouth can pick them off on the counter here. So I actually do like Bournemouth +1.5 at -130. I think they can hit City on the break. I mean, Brentford, I know that in the end, City dominated the match, whatever. The first half, Brentford had 3 or 4 breaks where if they were more clinical, they could have gone ahead against City. And Bournemouth is a much better team in transition right now than Brentford is, especially with Solanke, the form he's in. So I do like Bournemouth here at home, plus 1.5. Only projected City around minus 150 here. So I think you're getting a little value on Bournemouth.
Okay. On to Wolves next. They are minus 223, hosting Sheffield United. The Blades plus 550, coming off of a pretty ugly loss. The draw here is plus 350. Wolves coming off of another impressive win. A little bit of trivia. Usually BJ is the one to hand out these questions, but I'll take it in this week. If you go to handicap league tables, there's a group who put together a Premier League table basically based on a myriad of bookmakers, preseason expectations and projections, and then they compare it to how many points you are either points per game you are exceeding those expectations by or not meeting them by. So if that makes sense, it's a good way to kind of calculate manager performance, just who's overperforming, who's underperforming based on preseason expectations. Can you name the top 3 in that handicap league table, Anthony?
Wolves, Luton Town, and West Ham.
BJ?
I'll go Wolves, Tottenham, and I'll go West Ham as well.
It's Villa number 1, Wolves number 2, Liverpool 3, Tottenham 4. But the point is, like, just Wolves have just been flat out impressive this season. Like, Gary O'Neill, I think, should be getting a lot more noise around him than he actually does. Because if you think about it, it's 2 straight years he's done something really impressive as a manager. And because they're coming, and you can argue the fact that he took over a new team after what he did with Bournemouth last year, keeping them up, makes it an even more impressive kind of feat that he's done such a good job with Wolves, a team he took over, a week before the season started when Lopetegui walked away. So this is a really
United that week too.
Exactly. This is a really quietly, maybe not quietly anymore, people have taken notice, but just a tip of the cap to the job he's doing. But now we get to bet against him because I do think we're starting to see the market get a little bit too infatuated with Wolverhampton. I think a lot of that has to do with you look at the past 4 matches. They had a loss to Manchester United in the last dying moments of the game that it should have been at least a draw. You could argue that it should have been maybe even a win. Then they beat Chelsea 4-2. They beat Tottenham 2-1. In between there was a loss to Brentford. But I think that the pattern with Wolves is still as simple as we've been saying it. Like, they can beat anybody. They can give any team in this league a handful, but they can also, they can lose to anybody. They've already lost to Sheffield United this season. So why are we looking at this kind of number here? Is my question. And I get it's just the positive momentum that's going for Wolves, and they have been just really good. But this is a Sheffield United team. Boy, I hate to bring it up, but I'm going to do it anyways. They are in their last 8 matches, so since like right before the festive fixtures, they've got 1 win, 2 draws, 5 losses, minus 12 goal differential, 22 conceded, 10 scored. They're underperforming by 2 in terms of expected goals against goals scored, and they're underperforming by about 7 in goals against. So if this team can find a way to just stop some scoring chances, they should have a platform here, but maybe that's easier said than done. I'll back the Blades here at a big price, plus 550 BJ.
They're on pace to be the worst defense in the history of the Prem.
Yeah, I saw.
Let's stop it. That's not going to happen. We're going to stop it here.
At our lovely friends at Bet365, I think they're 4-1 to concede over 100 goals, which has never been done in a 38-match season, I believe, in the Premier League. It's bad. Like, their defense is bad. Their keeper's bad. They can't stop anybody playing through the middle. Like, Mason Holgate with one of the worst tackles I've ever seen to get that red card. I mean, that was alarmingly bad. And then, basically being like, what? How is that even a yellow card? It was very funny to watch. VAR took like 5 seconds to look at that and overturn it. But I agree with you, Michael, in a sense that we've just saw what happens with Wolves when somebody says, here, Wolves, you can have the ball, try to break us down. It just happened against Brentford. I mean, Wolves held over 70% of the ball, and Brentford outplayed them pretty much for the entire match. Can Sheffield United do something like that? They've shown it a couple times. They've been, dangerous on the break against teams like Luton Town. They've obviously beaten Wolves. So there's a chance they could do it. But I'm passing on this. It's kind of weird to see Wolves as like laying almost a goal and a half though against anybody.
Crazy.
It's like I don't know if I really want to take that, so I'm passing.
As am I. I have no interest in this match, to be honest. I'll end up betting something because it's the only Sunday match before the final. But there's got to be something in Serie A that's better than that.
No, come on.
I have to look. Let's see.
The Blades, man. The Blades. I think I bet
Wolves and Sheffield on Sunday morning in the European leagues. We have Real Betis against Bilbao at 10:15, and we've got Frankfurt Wolfsburg at 9:30, and we got Napoli, the corpse of Napoli, on the road. So maybe I will be watching Wolves, but it's not great.
NATO anytime assist.
Oh, it's an 8:30 kickoff. Maybe I'll just.
That's what we'll do. We'll just do NATO anytime assist, Anthony.
No. Look,
Celta Vigo is playing at 8.
Just trust me. Trust me. When it comes to Sheffield United, they've got 3 wins this year, and I've suggested bets on them in 2 of them.
Cameron Archer, anytime goal scorer, maybe.
We had them in the Underdog Parlay in 2 of those 3 wins.
I know. maybe we'll keep that in our pocket for later in the show. West Ham and Brentford to close out the Premier League portion of the program. Spurs and Luton Town are not featuring this weekend because of the EFL Cup postponements. West Ham plus 140. Bees plus 170. The draw is plus 260. Just, you can just suggest that this is a recording because a team that we want to bet on basically every week against a team that we want to bet against. And the bottom is starting to fall out for West Ham. They haven't scored in quite some time. They've got 1 goal in 4 matches in February. They've got beat 3-0 by United, 6-0 to Arsenal, and then 2-0 to Nuno's Forest. And I don't think the pain is going to stop here as Brentford are going to be desperate for a win, and just think that flat out they're the better team, maybe deserve to be favorites even on the road here, Anthony.
Market thinks so too, right? And that's the most interesting thing here. Like, you're not getting any more discounts to fade West Ham or cheap prices because the market agrees, and I think we've all said this all year. Brentford's better than West Ham. The defense did play better against City. No Nathan Collins. They kind of switched up some stuff. They got Onyeka back in the midfield, which I think is a big upgrade for them in terms of just tackling and ball winning. But yeah, you mentioned it, Michael. Like, last 8 matches for West Ham, they've scored 4 goals. 2 of them were penalties. They were blanked in 5 of those 8 matches, and that includes 2 FA Cup matches against Bristol City. So their attack has fallen off a cliff. I can't say it's shocking, given they were riding this tightrope of being so incredibly efficient at turning every chance into chances and goals every time they had the ball. And now, like, their defense is still bottom 5, and now their attack has just kind of looked more pedestrian, and you're seeing the results of that. They're not as consistent as Brentford is at creating chances either. So hard to create an advantage for West Ham here. You're pretty much at the floor, I think, of what this team can really be at this price, though. So I lean toward Brentford, and I'll probably end up betting them as well. But I think West Ham has been properly downgraded now into a bottom 5 team, which is what the market is saying they are. Crazy.
Yep. Brentford for me. Toronto bet. Plus 105.
Every week, baby.
Every week. We can move on.
Okay, let's do it. On to the Bundesliga up first in our little jaunt through Europe.
I got Friday, so you want me to go first?
Yeah, why don't you go first? Because I'm excited to hear what BJ's got to say about his bet.
Yeah, BJ's an interesting one here. That's a fun match, but I have a much less fun match. Leverkusen host Mainz. I got our Bayern ticket. I officially tore it up, printed it out, and lit it on fire. The bet slip, but they host Mainz this weekend. If you look at the underlying numbers, these are 2 of the 4 best defenses in Germany, and it's very interesting because Leverkusen is at their best in this league right now because teams press them because it's Germany and everybody's wired to play that way. And then eventually they are so good at playing through pressure and kind of finding the outlets to the wingbacks, Frimpong especially, that the wingbacks create width and then they just destroy you with their pace and create chances. But what happens when teams don't play very Bundesliga, like Mainz is going to do, I think, this weekend, and sit a little deeper and absorb pressure and not let the wingbacks have as much space to roam? And I think that's the key here. And as a result of that, like no Boniface still, you're seeing Leverkusen show some cracks in attack, even though their defense is playing really well right now. So I think what you'll see here, low scoring match. Leverkusen controls a lot of possession, doesn't get a ton of chances. Mainz has underperformed badly this year in attack, but they've also don't have a very good attack. So I think this is an under 3 at -105. I have this closer to 2.5, actually. So I like the under.
I like Bayern -150 at home against Leipzig. It's bad right now for Bayern. They're keeping Tuchel to the end of the season, which is a very weird thing, basically being like, he's sacked, but we don't really want to bring anybody in mid-season because we might get Xabi Alonso. So we don't really want to pay an interim manager. So we'll just keep Tuchel till the end of the season. And it sounds like things are going bad with the team. They're probably out of the Bundesliga title race. They could be out of the Champions League, and we could have a walking corpse towards the end of the season. And all that sounds horrible, right?
Yeah, there's going to be some good prices to
But they're only -150 against Leipzig at home this season. Or excuse me, this Saturday. They closed at -140 on the road against Leipzig in the previous meeting. And it ended 2-2. Leipzig scored a couple, scored off a set piece and scored, just outside the box to open it up. And then Bayern, did what they normally do and create north of 2 expected goals. Bayern's underlying numbers are way too good to have him this low, right? And you're getting a discount because of all the turmoil, because of the bad form, even though they, got varianced against Bochum. Yes, they look bad against Leipzig. Yes, they got dominated by Leverkusen, but let's not sit here and act like Leipzig has been like the Leipzig of the past few years. They're, very clearly the 4th best team in Germany right now. So I like Bayern, -150 at home. It's not fun, and it's probably one of the dumber bets that I'm going to make when I watch Leipzig go up 2-0. But the prices on Bayern are going to be too enticing over this second half stretch to potentially not play them, which is not a position I thought I'd ever be in. I thought I'd always be in a position to have to fade this truck, but now I'm betting on it. So it's just funny how this betting journey works sometimes.
Bayern is a fascinating handicap situation right now because it's true that they are generally a team we play against because they tend to be overvalued. And now the vibes are so bad and the market has shunned this team in the last month. And now we're coming back and saying, well, actually, you should probably buy Bayern. But then we look like idiots because we usually lay numbers and then they get beat. So, it's a really hard balance and try to figure out where you are on this team. And look, they're laying a 1.5 goals to Lazio in the second leg. I need to rewatch the first leg before I have a thought on that. But I am intrigued about laying it. So I'm not going to lay it here, though. I think I liked Leipzig at plus 1.25. That's the other thing about this. It was -215 when I looked at it before the Bochum match. Now it's -150. Do you really have to adjust that much off one match?
Yeah, that's my point.
Meccano's suspension is that valuable? I don't think so.
No.
Serie A up next here. BJ, what do you got?
Friday afternoon snoozer is what I have, Michael. Bologna, Verona, both teams to score no, -140. I've obviously talked about Bologna quite a bit. They've been the darling in Serie A. I'm holding a top 4 ticket at 8-1. That's been electric so far. Thiago Motta has done an incredible job with this team in terms of not only being able to build out of the back, play short passes through the middle, but they are an elite team out of possession. They're only allowing 0.8 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes in Serie A. They're taking on a Verona team that has actually improved in their low block over the last 10 matches. Only allowed 10.3 expected goals, only allowing 1.2 non-penalty XG per 90 minutes for the season, but they sold their best attacking threat during the January transfer window. They're only averaging 0.73 non-penalty for the season. In the last match between these two, it ended 0-0 with just one expected goal on 20 shots, and there was one shot with an XG rating over 0.1. So I am expecting another snoozer here. I really like Bologna in this spot, but with Verona playing a low block, I get worried sometimes about, Bologna's ability to actually break down a low block because they're much better when teams try to press them. So I like both teams to score no at -140 instead.
I would love nothing more than Bologna in the Champions League.
I would love it too.
And I think Italy's going to get a 5th spot too, because I think
that's something we'll have to do on the Champions League pod next to the race for the extra Champions League spot. Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're going to get a 5th spot. So I think Bologna might get 5th here. They got a real good shot at it, and maybe even 4th if Atalanta slips up. I think
or AC Milan.
I think they will win this weekend, but I like over 2.5 -130 more. Look, Milan's attack is fine, and they get the overlaps from Teo and combining with Leao, and Pulisic has continued to run really, really good on the other side. And they have options, right? With Loftus-Cheek in there now, he's been really good at getting forward in the midfield, because under Pioli they don't normally push their midfielders forward, but they're doing it more with Loftus-Cheek because he's so good in the box. And then they're getting, Giroud, but then when Giroud gets tired after an hour, they can go to Okafor or Jovic. Like, there are options for this team to go at people. And Atalanta's attack continues to trend up too, because De Ketelaere has been such an improvement this year. So I had this closer to 3. I like over 2.5 -130. I think Milan's defense, they keep giving away penalties and they've had weird results, but they're still conceding when they play the more attacking lineups. You see the flaws defensively that they have. They struggle to get that balance right. So I like the over.
Okay. La Liga time, BJ. All you.
Osasuna, draw no bet, +130 on the island against Las Palmas. Las Palmas was obviously a darling at the beginning of the season for us. Cashed some bets. It was fun. But my goodness, have they overperformed to get to the middle of the table. Even goal differential after getting beat 5-0 by Atletico over the weekend. Over -15 expected goal differential. That's second worst in La Liga. But guess what? They're actually a very possession-dominant side. They're holding on average 59% possession, but they just do absolutely nothing with it. It's incredibly slow. They're just trying to basically just pass the ball between the lines as slow as they possibly can. They are dead last in La Liga, non-penalty expected goals. That's how bad their offense has been. But their defense actually has been pretty good. But Osasuna, mid-table La Liga team. The last time these two teams played, it ended 1-1, but Osasuna was by far the better team. So I don't think there's really a world that Las Palmas, with the second worst expected goal differential, should be even somewhat of a home favorite here. So I like Osasuna draw no bet at +130.
I'm going to fade Girona again. You're seeing the defensive.
Yeah, I'm going to as well. I don't want to be redundant like every single week.
Yeah, I'll be it. I took the first half team total and the Vallecano +1. Impressive showing for Rayo, getting a good result at home against Real Madrid. Shut them down. Think they can slow down Girona. You're seeing that they're just a bottom half defense. They have no defensive winners in that team, ball winners, and thus I want to keep playing against them. So we hit some Real Madrid, we hit some Bilbao. Now we're going to hit Vallecano against Girona.
Okay. BJ, the only one in Ligue 1 as well.
Yep, I'll be quick. Lille -110 on the road against Toulouse. Great spot here for Lille, who, since the beginning of November, very clearly has the best non-penalty expected goal differential in France, around +10, way better than Nice, way better than PSG. Playing against a Toulouse team that's coming off a match on Thursday against Benfica to see if they're going to progress in the Europa League. Toulouse, one of the worst defensive teams in France. So a really good spot here for Lille, -110 on the road.
Okay, time to get into the Underdog Parlay. Like I said, this one comes in just shy of 214 to 1, about 213.5 to 1. So pretty big number here, Anthony. And we were close again last week.
Well, we went 0-3.
Yeah, but
we had 3 draws and all
3 draws
led in the second half.
Yeah.
So, depending on, it was dead by Friday afternoon, but, wasn't it bad? All 3 covered, but they did not win the money line for us. We're here for winners, not almost winners. So how about an almost winner for you? Forest +450. on the road at Villa. Talked about this one in the segment when I mentioned that I think Villa's just played closer to an average team with a very flawed defense. Forest is trending upward. I think you're catching them here at the market starting to catch on with this number, but maybe not quite fully. And so in a high variance setting like that, I want Forest plus 450, and I will take them to kick this off.
Okay, it's becoming a good luck charm for the underdog segment is Sheffield United. We've hit it twice. 2-0. 2-0. I think I've had a loss in there too.
No, I just checked that we have no losses on Sheffield this year. We have 2 wins.
There we go. So let's make it 3 for 3, or we can just regress here. Sheffield United is plus 550 on the road at the Molineux to take on Wolverhampton, a team that they've already beaten this season. You have to squint to see it, but the Sheffield United improvements under Chris Wilder are there. They've been okay. I mean, they're coming off of their past two losses were by a combined score of 10-0, but in between that, those two losses were a 3-1 win over Luton Town, and which they were part of this segment. So we'll go back to them here against a Wolverhampton team, which has been really, really impressive in terms of exceeding expectations, but it looks like the high water mark of the market on Wolverhampton, Gary O'Neill's Wolves. So we'll try to beat them with the worst team in the Premier League. And hey, who doesn't ever want to bet on perhaps the worst defensive team we've ever seen in Premier League history? So that's a good way to spend your weekend, right, BJ?
Exactly. And how about taking one of the worst away teams in the Premier League in Fulham on the road at the Theatre of Dreams? Manchester United has won 4 straight matches, but again, this team is a little bit of a Ponzi scheme. They have 9 wins this season where they have lost the expected goals battle. 3 of them came in their last 4 matches. I mean, against Luton Town, they conceded 22 shots. At one point in the first half, after they went up 2-0, they conceded 11 straight shots to Luton Town. Like, they are just giving up transition chances for fun. And Fulham has looked pretty improved in terms of their attack. Munoz coming in for Raul Jimenez is getting better shot production numbers. He's actually scored 4 goals. So Fulham might actually have a threat going forward here, and they're definitely live at 5-1. I mean, they outplayed United in the reverse fixture at Craven Cottage. United just got bailed out by a late Bruno goal. So I like Fulham 5-1 against Manchester United.
Okay, that's Fulham, Sheffield United, and Nottingham Forest. 213, 214 to 1, depending on where you get them. On to our favorite bets for the upcoming 8-match Premier League slate. BJ, what do you have?
Brentford, draw no bet, plus 105 on Monday against West Ham. This West Ham team has overperformed quite a bit to be sitting in the top half of the table. -8 actual goal differential, -12.6 expected goal differential. And it really comes down to the fact that their offense was really reliant on scoring these few transition opportunities that they had in the beginning of the season. And now those have dried up. They haven't scored for the last 3 matches, and the defensive numbers have always been bad. More specifically to this match, though, they've allowed the most crosses of anybody in the Premier League into their penalty area. And that is where Brentford thrives. They create most of their chances via crosses. West Ham also been a pretty average defense in terms of defending set pieces, while Brentford is always one of the best teams in terms of set piece offense in the Premier League. So great spot here for Brentford. Way better underlying numbers than West Ham. So probably should be a road favorite. So I like them. Draw no bet at plus 105.
I didn't want to do it, but I'm just going to. I co-signed BJ's Brentford pick, but to diversify things here at the end of the show, I'm going to go with Everton. They're 3-1 on the money line against Brighton on Saturday. This is more of a play against Brighton than one on Everton. I'm sick of betting Everton. I already have to bet them with my heart. But when you look at the range of outcomes for any Brentford Brighton match, things can just go in a million different directions. Case in point, their last 5-6 matches they've had 2-0 nils, a 4-0 loss, a 5-0 win, a 4-1 win, and a 2-1 defeat to Spurs. I mean, the 4-0 loss came to Luton Town. Any given Sunday is this Brighton team. Any given Sunday, they can beat anybody. They can lose to anybody. Hopefully this week they do the latter to Everton. I'll take the 300 on plus 300 on the Toffees. Anthony, you can close out the show.
Arsenal -1.5, plus 110 at home against Newcastle, who has been the worst defense in the Premier League for the last 2 months. They are shorthanded in attack. Isak might be back, but he's going to be limited, I think, based on just how much he missed. They're missing ball winners in the midfield to stop Arsenal in transition, to cover for their fullbacks who don't guard in transition well, defend space particularly well. And they're giving up just 2 or 3 big chances every match right now. They're going on the road against the best defense in the league. I do not think this is a match where Arsenal will have trouble creating, and thus I think they will roll at home and bounce back from a loss to Porto in the Champions League. Even though they will not win the league, they will win this weekend by multiple goals.
All right, that does it for this week's Wondergoal. We'll be back next week to preview more Premier League action. No Champions League preview show for Monday morning because it's a break. So for BJ and Anthony, I'm Michael. Best of luck with all your bets this weekend.